Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Rector of CTU, distinguished leaders of central and provincial governments, representatives of International Organization of Universities, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be participant of this first forum. A sentence repeated again and again. Climate change is a global, a universal challenge. Vietnam is among the 10 countries most vulnerable to climate change worldwide, and the Mekong Delta is one of the most vulnerable regions in Vietnam. And people in Can Tho and people in the Mekong Delta face that on a regular basis. Today we have a sunny day, but very often when we come to Can Tho, 3 weeks ago, for example, we came for a meeting and we were not able to come from the airport to Can Tho because it was all flooded and the taxis were not taking us to the city. And the DOC office was flooded as well, something which we have never faced before. The Mekong Delta is crucial. Is a crucial geographic region of Vietnam. It is not just a home of more than 17 million people, but also, importantly, the engine of the national economy, especially agriculture, in which it contributes 31% to the GDP. In the agriculture sector, it was mentioned already, aquaculture and agriculture. These two main industries involve over 75% of the people's livelihood in the Mekong Delta. They are heavily dependent on the natural characteristics of climate, water resources, and land resources. Changes in the physical and biochemical properties of all three resources, especially climate, will have major impacts on the ecology and livelihoods of the majority of local people. There are key challenges of the Mekong Delta. They have been mentioned. Formed by sediments from the river and ocean, and located in the last part of the river basin, the Mekong Delta used to be one of the richest and most fertile and productive deltas in the world. However, the flat topography of less than 2 meters in average, the reliance over the river sediment, and the presence of both fresh and saline water are now turning into disadvantages and even challenges. According to the updated climate change scenario, with a sea level rise of 1 meter, nearly half of the Mekong Delta would sink underwater, in which 80% territory of Cà Mau province would inundated. There are even perspectives that in 2050 all Mekong Delta will regularly be inundated. When global warming and climate change are getting along with anthropogenic drivers such as upstream water developments and regulations and local sand mining, the natural phenomena and disasters become even worse. The record events and consequent damages of drought and salinity intrusion in 2016 and 2020, or the recent alarming erosions along both west and east coast, are clear evidence. It is projected that by 2050, the rice production of the Mekong Delta would reduce by a total of 20% for the 3 crop seasons due to salinity intrusion. 1.3 million hectares will be affected by salinity in 2050. That is in 20-25 years. This is not only threatening food security, but may also trigger associated issues such as rice export. We know that 90% of the rice export in Vietnam comes from the Mekong Delta, or migration, which has strong social and political implications. The overall situation is worsened by improper priorities and orientations such as agriculture intensification and quantity focus. What are the responses and efforts by Vietnamese governments? To save the Delta and ensure its climate resilient future, the Vietnamese government have already started acting. Systemic and concentrated efforts have been made towards building climate resilience for sustainable development of the region across all sectors, territories, and levels of the hierarchy from central to regional and provincial levels. We have listened to the different key policies which have been put in place at the central level. Besides that, national strategies such as a strategy for climate change adaptation and strategy for disaster prevention also provide strategic and thematic orientations that are relevant for the Mekong Delta. At regional level, a new regional entity, the Mekong Delta Regional Coordination Council, has been established and started its operation. This is a crucial movement to improve the vertical and lateral coordination and collaborations between various sectors and territories. The construction of the Mekong Delta Data Center and the Specialized Forecasting Center for Drought and Salinity Inclusion was also kicked off. The program on modernizing irrigation systems for agricultural transformation and development in ecological zones of the Mekong Delta and the irrigation planning for Kulong River Basin are under implementation. At provincial level, various efforts and actions have been implemented and are ongoing. Most importantly, the provincial master socio-economic development plans with integration of climate change and disaster prevention is in the final stage of preparation in all provinces. Most provinces have developed or are implementing the Disaster Prevention Plan 21-25. And many provinces have developed and are implementing the Action Plan for Response to Climate Change 21 to 2030 Vision 2050. And some provinces, depending on their specific location and conditions, have also developed and are implementing various thematic plans and projects or programs, like, for example, on agriculture transformation and restructuring, establishing sustainable rice value chains, strengthening irrigation infrastructure for agricultural production and disaster prevention, and urban resilience or measures to enhance local storage for production and disaster mitigation. On behalf of GIZ, I warmly congratulate the Vietnamese government institution, partners and local communities for the results that have been achieved during the last years. With legal and institutional frameworks being put in place, many measures have been implemented on the ground to shift and align the Delta's agriculture along the new spine of agriculture, food, rice, from quantity to quality and along the value chain. The achievements are really encouraging. Adaptive and nature-based practices and solutions have been successfully introduced and adopted here and there, where severe as strong evidence and lessons learned for replication. Technology innovations and digitalizations have been tried and showcased in some localities and at scales. The results are still rather modest, but the main achievement of that, the need, road, and the potential of innovations and digitalization have been well perceived and recognized. But there are gaps to be filled and there are ways forward. Despite of many encouraging achievements, it remains a long way for the Mekong Delta to arrive to its climate resilient and sustainable development future. We perceive this as a learning by doing journey in which the following endeavors are to be kept up. The climate change and development policy and institutional frameworks at all levels should be further strengthened, in which due attention should be given to social and gender inclusions, a shortening that has been existing for long. The regional coordination needs continuous refinement, different ministries having different coordination groups and offices. It is necessary to have a mechanism for effective and consistent coordination across regional borders and in connection with surrounding regions. Local measures and solutions for climate change disaster prevention are to be continued in a refined and coordinated manner. Cross-provincial dimensions and implications should be studied and taken into consideration, especially in scaling up. Implemented measures and practices for agricultural transformation should be reviewed to inform policy, capacity and resources support, and the establishment of stable market and value chain remain as key for success. Innovations and digital transformation have huge potential, but also require adequate investment on research and development, technology transfer, and capacity development, and thus should be further promoted and integrated into development agendas. Concepts and approaches of circular economy need to be enabled and adopted, especially in agricultural sector. This is to ensure that the Mekong Delta's production is more resource efficient and climate environment responsible. Last but not least, the participation of private sector and knowledge institutions such as universities, the CTU is a typical example is of crucial importance to ensure the finance, market, technology, capacity and human resources needed for climate and development measures are provided in place. Further investment to the legal framework and mechanism is needed to realize this vision. The Mekong Delta is crucial to Vietnam and at the same time relevant to many global issues including climate change. Therefore, it is also a priority region of the international community. Presently, there are nearly 30 donors and development partners active in the Mekong Delta, including multilateral ones and bilateral ones, many of them present here today. The international partners are assisting in many different thematic areas, such as agriculture and food security, climate change, urban planning and resilience, coast and or river bank protection, water management and irrigation, education and vocational training and transportation. The German cooperation, with its technical and financial parts, is one of the partners with the largest investment in the Mekong Delta. It currently has a total of 14 projects in the Mekong Delta, of which 9 projects are ongoing, with a focus on agriculture and food security, aquaculture and fisheries, coastal and river bank erosion protection, climate, resilient urban planning, and disaster risk management. Climate change does not happen, start, or end within one particular city or province. Therefore, it requires coordination in policy making at national level, regional, interprovincial, and intersectoral coordination in implementation of legislation and projects and programs to address climate change. We strongly believe in the importance and the needs of multi-stakeholder cooperation to respond to climate change in the Mekong Delta. Therefore, we have been cooperating with Vietnamese partners at national, regional, and provincial levels to integrate climate resilience on the legal framework and supporting the implementation of the Mekong Delta as well as foster regional coordination. I wish you all good health and success. Thank you very much.